Hey, what's up guys, it's Jess. Welcome back to my channel. It is currently the start of finals week for fall quarter 2021 here at the University of Washington. All throughout my life, but especially in high school, I was involved in so many extracurriculars, so many sports. I was in AP classes, I had 3 jobs, and everyone was like, how do you manage to do all of that and get good grades? Having a busy schedule in high school definitely didn't stop there. I continued to be busy in college, so a lot of people wondered, well, how do you even have time to study when you have so much other stuff going on? What many people don't realize is that I actually don't have time to study, but I have been able to pass all of my finals and do extremely well on them because of the tips I'm going to be sharing with you today. So here is the video, How to Survive Finals Week When You Don't Have Time to Study, University of Washington edition. My motivational quote that gets me through finals week is actually on my laptop. I don't know if you can see it. Let me try and zoom in. It says, "Bye, I have to go study so that I can be better than everyone I hate." And if that doesn't get you through finals week, then I don't know what will. In all seriousness, it is super important to prioritize your physical and mental health going into finals week and throughout finals week. Number 1 is so simple yet so important, that is to drink water throughout the day and eat food. It is so crucial that you stay hydrated and keep your body nourished, and so many people neglect this because they think, oh, I don't have time to remember to drink water or to eat food because I'm too busy studying, and that is a horrible, horrible, horrible strategy to get you through finals week. In terms of what I eat and drink specifically, I always drink water throughout the day, but I do prioritize drinking a cup of green tea every single morning. I personally choose to drink decaffeinated green tea. I don't drink a lot of caffeine products, no coffee, no energy drinks. I personally feel most energized when I know that that energy is coming from a good night's sleep and eating food that makes my body feel good and stuff like that. A classic meal that has gotten me through finals week ever since high school has been salmon, brown rice, and vegetables. The next step is also super important, which a lot of people neglect because they think, oh, I don't have time for this because I'm too busy studying, is to exercise and be active and work out. I have personally fallen into this trap where I tell myself I can't go to the gym because I have to devote all my time into studying. But having those breaks from studying are so crucial and are honestly more beneficial than if you were to study for like 12 hours in a row. It's kind of the same reason why the Pomodoro, I don't know if that's how you say it, technique works so effectively by studying in little chunks and then having breaks in between so you're able to let your mind rest, retain that information, and then learn more things. It's also really important that during these breaks from studying, you do not go on your phone and scroll mindlessly through TikTok and Instagram and other social media because that is going to be detrimental to your studying and your learning as well. Next tip is very standard. Obviously, get a good amount of sleep. I would say anything between 7 to 9 hours is pretty good. 10 hours is pretty stellar. I wouldn't say going over that since you might feel like even more tired throughout the day, but also definitely don't go under like 6 or 5. That's not gonna cut it. Lastly, another tip that was really helpful for me in this physical health category was to prioritize and stick to a morning/night routine. My morning routine consists of waking up at a set time every single day, making the bed, doing all that hygiene stuff, drinking my green tea, and then only going on my phone when I truly need it and once all of that stuff is done. My nightly routine is also pretty simple. I stretch for at least 10 minutes. I talk about my goals for the day, for the week, and for the month, and then I go to bed. It's also really important that if you have a set routine prior to finals week, you don't want to let it slip up during finals week. Now we are moving on to the specific studying tips that I have for you. I would like to mention that this advice is definitely very general. It may not apply to your specific class or your specific type of exam you'll be taking, but just know that these tips definitely work for me, and if they can apply for you, then that's great as well. Number 1 is to create a note sheet with all of the material that could appear on the exam. This is obviously extremely valuable if you're able to bring the note sheet with you to your exam, but if you aren't, you're still able to process that information as you're writing it down. This quarter, I took Astro 322, and I bet no one in the class had a better note sheet than I did, like guaranteed. The strategy that I follow, which is a strategy my high school BC calculus teacher actually recommended to us, was to start from the knowledge and the material that is most recent to you and then work your way back. A lot of people tend to start from working from the beginning and then working their way to where the material they're at now, but that doesn't really make sense because you're going to be most familiar with the material that you're learning recently. And if you start from the beginning, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't remember any of this, and it sets you off for like a disaster to follow. It's kind of like starting with sentimental items when you're cleaning. That doesn't really make any sense. Why would you start with like the hardest things to go through first? So first, I started off by listing all of the valuable information from the exam review lecture. Then I went lecture by lecture by lecture from most recent to the beginning and listed all of the important information from there onto my note sheet. I recommend using a tablet to create your note sheet. I personally use the GoodNotes app. The reason why is because when you write text, you're able to resize it and therefore you can fit more on your note sheet. Not only did I go through all of the lectures again, I also went through all of the homework assignments and I straight up just wrote all of the homework questions and answers on my note sheet so that I would never miss a question on the exam. In case you're wondering how my Astro 322 exam went, I actually don't have the grades yet, but I'll be sure to share it with you all once I get them, if they're good. Just kidding. I'm very straightforward and honest on my channel. Like, I'll tell you guys if I fail, but I doubt I failed. But the reason why I'm so confident that I did well is because I put down every single thing that has ever been discussed in class, in lectures, and whatever on that note sheet. And so I think that's one of the most valuable tips I can share with you is regardless if you can use a note sheet on your exam or not, definitely create one in order to kind of categorize all of the material you've ever learned and have it all appear on one double-sided sheet. The next tip is to pick a space. Oh my gosh, why was that so hard to say? Pick a space where you want to study. I personally recommend switching up the environment every once in a while, whether that may be every few hours or every day. I just recommend going to different places to study so that you're not stuck in one spot and you're like, oh my gosh, I hate doing this, I hate being here, blah, blah, blah. For example, you don't want to be in your favorite coffee shop for like 12 hours and think, oh my gosh, I'm hating this coffee shop because all I associate it with is studying for this horrible exam. A few good places that I recommend for UW students to study at is definitely the Suzzallo Library Reading Room. It's super quiet in there and you're able to focus really well. Personally, Odegaard is just so packed during finals week that I don't find it super productive to be in there just because there's so many people and I'm like, where am I supposed to sit? It was a waste of time even going here and looking. So up to you if you want to study there. If you can find a spot, great. If you like being around a lot of people when you study, if it makes you feel productive, then great. Personally, I don't need to be surrounded by a whole bunch of people to be productive, and also it gets a little bit noisy in there. So I just recommend Suzzallo or any of the other libraries. Luckily, around the UW campus, there's a lot of great coffee shops and cafes where you can study as well, so that's super fun. If you're up for it, you can always venture out to the Seattle Public Library. I have yet to be there, but it looks super cool, and I can't wait to go there eventually. I would maybe refrain from studying in your room or your household. I know that there's a lot of distractions that can come up there, but if it really is the only place you can study, then that's totally fine, but just make sure that you really have a productive mindset and you're able to stray yourself away from those distractions that may come up. It's also really difficult when you're in a very small room. For example, my desk is right here, and if I'm studying right here, I'll see the bed behind me and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, I want to sleep. Oh my gosh, there's my phone right there, let me go look at it, blah, blah, blah. There's just too much stuff that can get in the way. So I'd always recommend going to a different space that's not the place that you live in. My next tip is pretty general, so it definitely depends on the class that you're taking, but obviously go to exam reviews if they have them, look for online resources, go through all of the lectures that you went over, go through all of the homework assignments, go through all the labs. This is definitely a trap I've fallen into, but if you know something really well, there's no point in restudying it, especially if you're low on time. It's more important that you prioritize the things that you don't know. The reason why this is a trap is because I oftentimes restudied the things that I already knew most confidently. So I was like, yeah, I totally got this. And then like completely neglected all the stuff that I didn't know. And obviously all the stuff that I didn't know would appear on the exam. And I'd be like, oh shoot, I wish I had studied that. So yeah, especially if you're short on time, definitely don't prioritize the stuff that you already know. Prioritize the stuff where you're like, I have no idea what the heck this is. If there's a concept you're struggling with or a specific question you have, feel free to reach out to your TAs and your professors. They're usually pretty responsive during finals week. Obviously, an important tip is to know when your actual final exam is and to schedule accordingly. Obviously, if you are in crunch time in your exams tomorrow, it's a little bit hard to schedule, but even then you can kind of split out your day and be like, okay, this is when I'm going to study this is what I have to do, blah, 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 blah. But this is definitely a good, helpful tip if you're further out from the actual exam day, is that you can split your studying throughout each day and then split what material you want to cover each day. Another really important thing that got me through prepping for exams was to create a to-do list of every single thing I was going to do, but then split it into reasonable small tasks. For example, let's say you're studying for an astronomy class and you put the task down of know everything from the second semester. That is just way too broad of a goal for your brain to comprehend what exactly you need to do in order to do well in that exam. It is way more beneficial to you and way less stressful if you split it up into smaller tasks. For example, if you're prepping for your astronomy exam, you're going to say, I want to read chapter 2 and review the 5 problems at the end of the section for today. That is a much more specific goal. You're talking about the type of material you want to go over, what questions you want to go over. You get the idea. In the 8th grade science fair, I created a project where I tested if positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement was going to be more helpful in terms of the student succeeding on exams. And my results showed that positive reinforcement is the way to go. So if you're trying to get through finals week, think of stuff that you want to do over winter break. Think of your Christmas wish list, think of bucket list items. Maybe even think of something you want to do right after the final is over, whether that's hang out with your roommates or go get brunch or get an item that you've always been wanting. It's kind of like the treat yourself mentality, which has personally been very helpful to me. Now we are getting into my favorite section, which is what to do on the day of the exam. I am someone who doesn't get test anxiety, and everyone is so jealous of it. They're like, oh my gosh, how are we not so stressed out? The reason is because I have a specific mentality that could be detrimental at times, but for most of the time it works, well, what's the worst that could happen? I could fail. I could get below average. My GPA could suck. I could not get into grad school. I could not work at NASA. Like, keep it rolling. Even if all of those things are true, which again, I don't think so in this mentality, because I'm like, none of those things are realistically going to happen from one bad exam. But if they did, I know in my brain that I'm going to be successful regardless of where my path takes me. I think some people who have test anxiety are often insecure about the way they'll perform in comparison to other people, especially at UW. This is definitely the culture where you're definitely competing with everyone in your class, which kind of sucks. So that is a pretty simple explanation as to why I don't have test anxiety. It's simply because of my mindset and that I know that the worst that can happen is still not going to be enough to screw over my life because I'm going to be successful regardless. One of my favorite tips from this entire list is to dress confidently on the day of your exam. Wear a really cute outfit that you love, do a hairstyle that you enjoy, put on some jewelry, do your makeup, whatever the case may be, look flipping good. If you go in with that I'm dead, I'm so tired mentality into your exam, how do you expect yourself to want to perform as best as you can when you're looking the worst that you can? That's kind of the mentality I have going into exam day, is that I'm going to look the best that I can on the outside because I'm going to perform the best that I can on this exam. When I went into my Astro 322 exam, I straight up wore a black blazer with shoulder pads, I wore high-waisted black pants, I wore my Jordan Bread shoes, and I wore gold hoops and a bunch of rings on my finger, and I was set for this exam. And I remember the girl sitting next to me was like, why are you so dressed up? And I told her I needed to in order to basically destroy everyone in the class and the reason why the curve was going to be up. And my professor laughed at that because she's like, oh my gosh, I do the same thing whenever I need to present in front of people. I always make sure that I look good on the outside because it makes you feel good on the inside and honestly perform better in whatever task that you're doing. So I would say that's my biggest tip. I did the laundry, I did the dishes, I made you food, and I made you chicken salad.
Scoot over! I'm not even in frame.
Okay, but this is good. No, listen. This is good because then you'll be able to hear a different perspective from people that both perform well in school and whatnot. So you'll be able to hear what my tips are and what your tips are and see which ones work best for you and which ones you can apply.
If you're not prepared to go into finals week before going into finals week, you're kind of screwed. Like, I recognize that finals week is going to be a challenge, and I accept the nervousness, I accept that challenge, and I go in steadfast, like prepared to do absolutely anything necessary to destroy everybody else in my class. Like you were talking earlier, I guess we think similarly in that kind of way. Like, no offense to anybody else in my class, but I'm out to like be the best. So if you go in with a proper mindset, you're going to do well. But if you have a weak one, then you're going to perform weakly.
See, that's why I don't understand when I went into my physics 121 exams, everyone was like scrambling to study their like last minute notes and whatnot. They're like, oh my god, I don't know anything, I'm going to do so bad. And that's like a horrible mentality to go into an exam. Yep. Like, obviously you're not going to do well if you think that way.
You know, like, not only that, but so many people literally, I don't know, it's not bragging, but they'll think it's cool to like not know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think it's pathetic, frankly. Like, walking to classes, somebody was behind me was like, oh yeah, I have no notes on stereographic projection. I was like, are you f***ing stupid? Like, what's wrong with you? I didn't say it, of course, but it's just so dumb. Like, I'll be walking by people at UW saying like, oh yeah, I got a 28% on that exam. It's like, are you actually stupid? Why are you going to college? You're spending thousands of dollars to get 28% on your exam, not study and not be prepared and not be willing to do what it takes to excel, or at least try. Like, who cares if you don't perform? At least try. Like, why are you here? It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, I think it's a little different if you, like, well, obviously 28 is a pretty rough score, but if you get a 28 and you, like, genuinely spent time studying and making note sheets and doing, honestly, the best you could given your circumstances versus not at all studying and then not caring about the exam and then getting a 28, that's a little bit different.
Also, drink water and brush your teeth and be well dressed.
I told them that.
I heard that a second ago.
I honestly said that those were, like, some of the most important tips, is to just, like, feel good and look good.
Dude, take care of your hygiene. Like, there's not only just for finals, but in general learning, if you don't cover your bases, how are you ever going to excel at anything?
Okay, so that is the end of the video. Hopefully you were able to learn a little bit about how we prep for finals and how to get through finals week. If you are currently going through them right now or will be going through them soon or even next quarter, next year, whatever the case may be, I wish you the best of luck. You totally got this. Any last words to say for them?
Make a note sheet too. Even if
I said that.
Yeah, even if you don't get to use one, it's good for studying.
Same wavelength.
Yeah, I guess that's why we're dating.
Okay, bye everyone. Oh my gosh. You made me, like, forget my, like, outro speech. I say the same thing every time, and it just, like, I, like, fumbled in my head. I think I got nervous.
Nervous, like, for the camera or for me?
Well, obviously not for the camera.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Bye.